Welcome to the Further Light Podcast, presented by Wisconsin Freemasonry, helping you accomplish your Masonic goals through education and more light. And now, I present to you, Brother Chris Ludke.
Listeners, scholars, brothers, this is Brother Chris Ludke, and today I want to explore, again, continuing our summer short series, the length of the cable tow. This is a piece of Masonic education written for the Wisconsin Masonic Journal by Worshipful Brother Pat Cholka. Now, we are all familiar with the idea of the length of the cable tow, but here we want to expand on it. Just like so many symbols and ideas in Masonry, they're almost infinite interpretations. And again, these are ideas that are out there not to tell you what is right or wrong, but rather to get you thinking about the topic. So, to the article. Again, by Worshipful Brother Pat Cholka, The Length of the Cable Tow. I've written on the cable tow previously. In that piece, however, I focused on its symbolic meaning. Here, I would like to talk about an aspect of it that is referenced but not defined in the ritual of the Grand Lodge of Wisconsin, which is often referred to by many Masons: the length of the cable tow. In my previous article, I referred to the cable tow not only as a method to control the candidate, but also as a visible symbol of a vow in which a man has pledged himself to that which he holds dear or of high esteem. Not only does the cable tow bind the individual Mason to Freemasonry, but it also binds Freemasonry to the individual Mason. The fraternity is also under an obligation to its members to guide, instruct, and train them for the effective service of the craft and of humanity. The only reference I made to the length of the cable tow in that article was to note that I understand its length is determined by the ability of the man to fulfill his obligation to that which he has vowed. When talking specifically about the length of a cable tow, we are obviously not referring to it as a means of control over the candidate, but as a symbol of the bond between Mason and the fraternity. Many Masonic writers of old have defined the length of the cable tow, sometimes called a cable's length, in various measures. Some have written that its length is 720 feet, or twice the measure of a circle. Gadik, a German writer on Freemasonry, defines the length as 3 miles for an entered apprentice. As a side note, that's impressive today, since most of us drive further than that to lodge, and, well, 3 miles isn't necessarily that much. As Masons, we tend to like our symbols clearly defined, with no ambiguity, like an instruction manual. However, the length of our cable tow is always changing. Changes from day to day and situation to situation. This is not to say that we can pick and choose when to live by the principles of Freemasonry, nor that we chose when to demonstrate that moral character that is characteristic of a Freemason. A brother that I asked to proofread this article for me made an excellent analogy that resonated with me. Consider that there are two forces of Freemasonry at work within the cable tow: adherence to the moral principles it enjoins, and to participate in its activities. When the cable tow binds us to the principles of the fraternity, that is short and unchanging. The portion that binds us to its activities, on the other hand, may change based on your situation. It's a matter of priorities. Obviously, when you make a commitment to take an officer's chair, you have placed a higher priority on participating in the fraternity, and your cable tow has gotten shorter. But that's a topic for a different paper. In an organization that stresses balance between life's responsibilities, the way Freemasonry stresses the need for balance among its membership, see the lessons of the 24-inch gauge and the compasses, for example, it is only natural that Freemasonry understands and expects the Mason's responsibilities outside the lodge to receive a higher priority than his responsibilities within it. Freemasonry is not so arrogant as to expect a Freemason to put the needs of his lodge or brother above his own demands. It is quite clear on that. The adage of family, work, service to the grand architect, the lodge, has been repeated by many Masons. Well, it does expect that the Mason, while it does respect that the Mason will meet the needs of his lodge when he is able, that he will add those needs to his list of priorities, but all the while living according to the principles set forth and striving to improve his moral character. In other words, family comes first, then work, then service, and finally lodge, not lodge first. And that's kind of an important concept for many of us to keep in mind. While a specific length of the cable tow is impossible to define, I think that the definition was decided on at the Baltimore Masonic Convention in 1842 is most appropriate. It is reported that the convention attendees arrived at the definition of within the scope of a man's reasonable ability. So the cable tow isn't about distance, it's about prioritization. What comes first? And that changes. Yes, there are times where family comes first, where service may come first, before the lodge. There may be other times where the lodge for a short period comes first simply because of the needs of the lodge. The cable tow reminds us to balance those things, to generally keep to that principle that goes family, work, service, lodge. And while there are times that we will fall out of that, as long as we have a plan to get back into that specific hierarchy, we're probably going to be in good shape. It's an interesting way of looking at the cable tow, an interesting reminder to so many brothers out there who maybe prioritize lodge or other Masonic events more highly than they prioritize many other things in their lives. And while that dedication is phenomenal, it can also be very problematic. That being said, thank you for joining me, Brother Chris Leakey, and the entire Further Light team on your quest to find more light through Masonry.
Are you interested in learning more about Freemasonry in Wisconsin? Visit wisconsinmasons.org to learn more about Masonry and access further educational content and more light. Once again, that address is wimasons.org. Any questions, comments, or suggestions, please email us at education@wisconsinmasons.org. And thank you for listening.